All right, so I'm going to introduce to you this model that Kunzman, Stange, and Jordan generated in 2005 to try and explain positive affect. Affect is another word for emotion. So they argue that there are two dimensions to positive emotion or affect. So there are feelings. I'm trying to decide how I want to reveal this to you. Okay, so feelings versus lifestyle. So pleasant affect would be when you're feeling maybe exuberant, happy, proud, amused, cheerful. See all these adjectives that sort of imply positivity, right? So these would be pleasant affect feelings. And then there's positive involvement. So like feeling interested, feeling alert, feeling inspired, feeling attentive, feeling active, right? Like feeling motivated towards something. So those would be like assessments of positive involvement. The correlation between these two components of pleasant affect and positive involvement, it's a pretty good correlation coefficient of 0.37. For things in psychology, 0.37 is considered a pretty good correlation between two things. So these are clearly associated with each other, like feeling exuberant and then feeling interested. Those things tend to go together. Now, under lifestyle, there's hedonic lifestyle, which is where you're seeking a pleasurable life, right? You're seeking out intimacy, you're seeking out social approval. So, some of the things that I had introduced in a previous lecture. And then there's growth related lifestyle factors like valuing personal growth, valuing the well being of your friends and your family, being engaged in your societal scenario, volunteering for things or participating in things, that kind of lifestyle stuff. So we've got these two dimensions, feelings and lifestyle. And under each of those, there are sort of subparts, right? So if we do a sort of matrix and we look at, under the feelings, we're doing pleasant affect, and under lifestyle, we're doing hedonic. Maybe to represent that we're engaging in that, we might buy something nice for ourselves, maybe go out dancing where we could socialize with other people, maybe go to dinner with friends, reconnect. These would all be sort of hedonic, right? They're pleasurable, they increase intimacy, might give us an opportunity for social approval, and they also probably will generate positive affect. You may feel happy and amused and cheerful as a function of participating in that. Still staying under pleasant affect, but now going into the growth related lifestyle factors, we might maybe learn a new skill, help a friend who needs us. Maybe we have a skill that they need our assistance with. Go to a museum, learn something new, right? So we have that pleasant affect component, but also with an expression of wanting to grow and develop. If we're looking at positive involvement as our feeling and then the hedonic lifestyle, maybe taking classes for a new certification so we can, get societal approval for something that we like to do anyway and maybe we're good at. Maybe we cook dinner for friends so that we can get their approval for the thing that we produce. We can, and then it's good and we get to enjoy the pleasure of eating it and like that. Now, you might have heard of this before. It kind of made the rounds in the past, probably 10 years, people talking about this concept from Denmark called hygge. I have a bad accent in Danish since I don't speak it, but hygge. And this is a word that is nice and simple and everybody knows, but to translate into English takes like a sentence to try and explain what this means. But it's like acknowledging a special feeling or a moment and really being, and it's not like, so it's hard for me because we don't really have this concept very well down in like American culture. But it's not when, let's say that you're out and about and the sun is setting and your friend tells you, oh, look, a beautiful sunset. Let's all look at it. And you sort of make it a moment. Like, not that. It's instead you're out and you get overwhelmed by the sunset and you just want to sit and hold each other's hands, and nobody had to tell anybody to look at it. Everybody just sort of had that moment that actually brought them together in a organic way to enjoy that moment together or enjoy that moment yourself. Sometimes people will define hygge as like cozy. So a lot of times, people will engender an idea of like maybe a fire in the fireplace or candles burning, a warm blanket, something like that. That might evoke a hygge feeling in a person. Um, the thing I want to emphasize is that it tends to happen naturally. It's not something that you seek out. You recognize it, you experience it when it happens, but you it's hard to make it happen. That's all I'm trying to say. So the last thing would be if you had positive involvement and then a growth related lifestyle, and this would include things like volunteering, reading books. You're actively involved and you're maybe learning something or expanding your experience through the novel that you're reading, something like that. Being politically active, again, you're being engaged in society and also feeling interested and alert, stuff like that. I'm an election observer and there's a primary coming up, and so I'm really excited because I get to go um, pull a couple of shifts observing the counting of the ballots, right? It's just fun and I enjoy it. Um, and I look forward to it. So it must be something that's positive, right? So you can kind of imagine different activities, different states of mind, fulfilling different aspects of positive affect, right? And that there's no one way. One of the things that's really hard if you read magazines or maybe on social media, you might see people talking about how to like live your best life. And a lot of times they'll pull out like one thing and say, just do this one thing every day and you're going to have a great positive life. And probably not. You'll adapt to it. It won't have the power. Maybe at first it had the positivity, but you'll adapt to it. Um, and so it'll lose its power to be that happiness inducing thing. And so um, being able to mix and match, and sort of sometimes you're focusing on pleasant affect and hedonic lifestyle, sometimes pleasant affect and growth, really like hopping around is probably what will over time produce the greatest increase in positive affect. So Kunzman et al. Did a study of people who in their study were between the ages of 15 and 70 years old. And what they found is that younger people tended to seek out pleasant affect and a hedonic lifestyle, whereas older people tended to seek out more positive involvement and more growth related lifestyle. So there's our natural tendencies when we're younger are to do certain kinds of things to seek out positive affect. As we get older, we tend to do other kinds of things when we're seeking out positive affect. I mean, it's not probably surprising that as an older person, I am excited about being an election observer, right? Like it's kind of typical, and it makes a lot of sense that older people tend to do those kinds of things and younger people tend to do those kinds of things. It's part of growth and development. So if you find yourself mostly operating in sort of one part of that chart, don't feel bad. I mean, probably it's a reflection of your age and what you've like the amount of free time that you have, things like that. If you only have a certain amount of free time, are you going to spend it being an election observer, or are you going to spend it with your friends getting maybe something to eat and then going dancing? Like, you only have a certain amount of time, like, so whereas as we get older, we probably have more time, and so maybe we can experience a lot of those different things, right? So it's don't feel bad if you find yourself maybe in one part of the quadrant. That's all I can say. Never feel bad about anything that you're doing to try and boost your positive affect, I would say, as long as it's legal. Gratitude. So I had to throw in gratitude, even though it's not overtly discussed in our textbook. It's kind of something that people have really, they've actually been doing more experimental research in the field of gratitude than in some of the other positive psychology areas. Um, but I had to throw it in because one of my colleagues is one of the foremost researchers in the field of gratitude. So certainly I have to give him a nod. So gratitude is, recognition of our positive outcomes. When we experience gratitude, it is associated with expressing greater life satisfaction, experiencing greater empathy for other people, um, displaying greater forgiveness, having better health, improved sleep, and higher self esteem. So these seem like things that are worthwhile, right? Um, People who have had traumatic experiences tend to experience fewer symptoms afterwards and less negative affect if they experience gratitude, if they practice gratitude. So, I wanted to share with you some research that my colleague has conducted. This is absolutely not a comprehensive list of his references. I just wanted to focus on this one that I really know more about because I got to see him give a talk. So I know about this one. He had participants who he randomly assigned to either um, keep a journal where they wrote three things that they were grateful for each day. And everybody in the study got little text reminders. Don't forget to write in your journal so that they would do it. The other people were randomly assigned to write down just something interesting that happened, three things that happened today. So, three things that you're grateful for, three things that happened today, so that we could have people journaling. So everybody's journaling, everybody's getting reminders to write, everybody's getting treated exactly the same. The only difference is what they're writing about. I'm grateful for this, that, and the other thing versus this, that, and the other thing happened today. And they did this journaling for 6 weeks. Prior to the start of the study, they were all screened for depression and anxiety. And then after the study was conducted, they took those same screening tools again. And what he found immediately upon the conclusion of the 6 weeks of journaling is that the people who did gratitude journals had a decrease in their depression symptoms. And it was a decrease relative to the start of the study. And then it was also a decrease relative to the journaling, the just remember something that happened today group. So the act of journaling was not, I'm sorry, I'm going to turn myself off. I'm blocking some stuff I forgot. So just journaling didn't reduce their depression. It was journaling what they were grateful for versus the people who just wrote down things that happened today. They didn't have any change in their depression scores. So so that was a really big and important finding is that immediately upon conclusion, they experienced this decrease in depression as a function of the gratitude journaling. But here's a really interesting twist. They decided to follow up with the participants one more time 6 weeks after the conclusion of the journaling. No one had been told to continue journaling. They were just thanked for their participation in the study, but then they were contacted again 6 weeks later and they took the depression scale again. And what they found is that the people who had done the gratitude journaling were still experiencing lower levels of depression symptoms 6 weeks after the study had stopped, relative to where they had been at the beginning of the study and relative to their peers who had done regular just writing down memories. So either the journaling had a 6 week carryover effect where this decrease in depression symptoms just lasted for at least 6 weeks, or it's possible, and at the time that he gave the talk, he wasn't clear on which of these answers was true, um, or they had spontaneously continued to journal their gratitude journal even after the study was over. That's possible. A lot of people who start gratitude journaling continue it because it really is sort of self-perpetuating. It does make them feel better, and so they continue on. So I'm not sure if you need to continue journaling in order to continue to have the benefit or if it would have carried over for 6 weeks anyway. But hopefully that's a really powerful message that expressing gratitude really does help, really does make us feel better. Um, the thing about gratitude journaling is that, it's basically free. And even though he was kind of disappointed in some of the gratitude journals because some people would write like the same thing every day. Like they just were still grateful for the thing before. And he was very frustrated with that because it's like, oh, these people are phoning it in. Like I want them to think of something new every day. And so he really tried to kind of control what people were writing down. And he was like, please write something different than yesterday. Really think, you know, he really tried to get them to do something different. And what he found at the end of that study is that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you're grateful for the same three things for every single day for 6 weeks, or if you literally have three different things to write every single day for 6 weeks. It doesn't matter. It's the act of writing down and being aware of the things that you're grateful for that really seem to matter. So he's like, well, I'm not going to try and control what they're writing anymore because it doesn't matter. It's okay as long as they're being grateful. So I thought that was worth injecting into our conversation because it's such a meaningful thing. Now I do have to say you can't feel like you have to keep writing and keep doing these things if it's not having the effect that you need, or if being grateful is actually making you feel worse. Like don't that's not good. And that is the topic of our next segment, is like, to what degree should we be trying to pursue happiness by doing some of the things I'm talking about? Like, is it good or bad? So we'll pick up with that in the next video.